Hello, everybody, and welcome to today's BAInsights session. And today we'll be talking about the key challenges facing business analysts. And importantly, we'll also be talking about how to resolve them as well. Once again, I'm really glad to have three excellent guests with us to talk about this very subject. Before we dive into the topic as usual, let's do some introductions. If we can start, Petunia, with yourself, with an introduction, if you wouldn't mind, please.
Thank you so much, John. My name is Petunia Langa. I am a business analyst with over 11 years of experience. I've worked in banking, mining, telecommunications, education, and I'm currently now in banking, regulatory banking. And I'm very excited to be here. I also volunteer my time with the BA community in my country, South Africa. So I'm really excited to be here. And thank you, John.
Okay, excellent to have you. Thank you very much, Petunia. And George.
Thank you, John. I'm very glad to be here. My name is George Sioutzos. I am a senior business analyst. Also, I have experience in banking sector where I started, and then at social security sector in a software company, Netcompany. And I'm really glad to discuss with also the other here colleagues for the issue.
Excellent. Thank you very much, George. All right. And last but not least, Lady Bhie, over to you for your introduction.
Hello, everyone. I am Elizabeth Ekenimoh. I like to go by Lady Bhie because it's my brand name. I am a business analyst. I just recently got promoted to senior business analyst. I have worked across FMCG. I've worked in e-commerce. I am currently renewable energy, and I'm excited to chime in on this topic at BAInsights today.
Excellent. Thank you very much, Elizabeth. All right. Okay, so let's dive in with the first question then. We'll put this one to Petunia first, if I could. So really, what are some of the biggest challenges faced by business analysts, in your opinion, Petunia?
Thank you so much for that question. And it's quite a complex topic that we're discussing today. And I don't know, I just want to hit the nail right at the top. The biggest one is domain knowledge, right? I
Okay.
think that we struggle with understanding or have limited knowledge on a product. So BAs struggle, if you join a new team and let's say you invested in the mining sector, now you're joining a banking sector, you struggle with grasping what the solution is, and the tools which you apply are still maybe, behind and all of that. So I feel that that's the challenges that BAs face, is that they lack knowledge, and their planning of how to apply the different skill set that they've learned across. It becomes difficult for some BAs, not all of them. Some are really good at that. And the second challenge I came across in my journey is a misalignment of requirements, where information is coming from various different sectors or different people, and that results in communication being a barrier, because my development team is looking for this, my business teams are looking for something different, and you struggle to find a balance between who you make happy as a BA. And if you have that background of how to apply the different knowledge areas that you've acquired from the different disciplines or industries, that it becomes a problem to just get in an industry, or get in a space and share that yourself, because of you lack knowledge, and that can hinder your confidence. Yeah, I think
Excellent.
I'll write it about that there. Yeah.
And I mean, both I'm pleased to say are sort of topics that domain and the misalignment. I think, as we'll talk about in a little while in terms of how to resolve them and overcome them, I think they're both areas of actually can be a bit interesting. It can make your role a bit more interesting, where there's different domains and initially maybe disagreement on certain situations as well. So thank you for that excellent start, Jim. George, what are your perspective on that question?
Yes, from my perspective, one of the biggest challenges is stakeholder management, and meaning stakeholder management is a really umbrella term, a broad term. It has many aspects. First of all, trying to convince them about the necessity of the change, why this new software, this new product will bring a value. Secondly, to make them understand the scope. I think it's really challenging to manage the stakeholders and client expectations in general. And when you are from the vendor side, you have to balance the feasibility, the project scope, the objectives of the project with the expectations of the customers of what they need. Not everything can be done, okay? There is a scope, there is a specific project territories, and balancing these things is something challenging from my experience, because you have your own part, the part of your company, the project, and from the other side, you try to build a relationship, to retain those relationships, to try to make your stakeholder trust you and serve them with the best way. And however, you have sometimes to keep the scope there. So this is something I think it's a challenge.
Excellent, George. And I'm sure not only did that answer probably resonate with Petunia and Elizabeth, but it probably resonated with, it certainly resonated with me, but it probably resonated with those watching it as well. So thank you. Elizabeth, your view on that same question.
Okay, thank you so much, John. I can sit with George, and one thing I'd say from my experience, I have found to be one of the problems that BA faces is ambiguity. Many a times, CEOs, CTOs, stakeholders on the business end are not clear on what it is that they want. So they go to try to explain the big vision, but they don't come home to where you can relate it. So you're unclear as to what the priorities are, what do we go with first? And sometimes they just want, oh, go finish the work, okay? I don't care how you get there. And then you struggle to have to do your backlog grooming. What do I have to prioritize? Who am I working with? Sometimes I don't have all of that information. And I've worked with startups, at least I've worked into startups in different fields, hospitality and renewable energy, to know that this is a common problem, particularly with startups. So I face that ambiguity a lot where I have to now come down and know, like just said, how to manage my stakeholders such that I'm able to keep our work within scope. I'm able to define what's within scope, keep the work within scope, and then produce, because I have to know how to work with the project team or the product team to deliver what it is we want, and know what framework we're working with. So a major pain point for me is ambiguity.
Yeah, and that, again, definitely resonates. And I think that can come, as you were sort of touching on there, in many ways, can't it? I mean, it can be ambiguity of the direction set and the scope, but also, just the requirements of stakeholders, whether it's one or many as well. And I think there's certainly BAs must come across, and we do come across dealing with ambiguity almost on a daily basis. So feels like you added another really good example there, Elizabeth. And actually, I mean, I think for me, the thing that I would add on top of those excellent examples is, that sometimes stakeholders we work with, sponsors we work with, they don't always appreciate the full range of BA capabilities and skills that we have. So they might have us focusing on some fairly straightforward or narrow scope, when actually if they were a bit more aware, then maybe they might have us a bit more involved earlier in the process, or a bit more later on when it comes to solutions, and as well as maybe joining some of the dots on the solutions or problems that we come across as well. And I'm sure we'll take not only that example, but the excellent examples you've all said, and start to explore them in a little bit more detail over the next few minutes. And I'm also sure as well, there's probably people watching this going, I've got different challenges, and there's more than the three of or four of us have mentioned. By all means, people should comment and let us know. I know for a fact that the four of us are only just summarising one or two examples of the challenges, and that we're not trying to give it all of them at this point. But I wonder, I mean, Georgia, we'll start with you on this one in terms of what could be the root cause perhaps of some of the challenges that we've heard about already.
Thank you, John. Interesting question. I think one of the causes is the inherent different interests between stakeholders. There is inherent different interest. Also between dev team, okay, PM team, also inside and in the customer, there are different priorities, different interests. Also, a cause, I think it's not understanding again the objective of the project, the scope of the project. It's very important every involved stakeholder to have a shared understanding on what is the project about, what we are going to do, what is the expectations, and what is the value we will get in practical terms. And every BA from the team and every dev from the team to be aligned on the mission and what we are doing here. I have seen it, unfortunately, many times not to be this the case. So many people don't know what is the aim, the big picture.
Yeah.
And this can cause some challenges in the communication, in the management, etc.
And I suspect, George, I mean, even behind that, perhaps, some of that different understanding and priorities that some of the stakeholders have, as you mentioned, might come because some of those stakeholders haven't been with the project or the initiative from the start. They might have only just joined and missed out some of those meetings. They may not have read some of the materials. And I'm sure there's a whole heap of other root causes to those causes as well. But another great start. Thank you. Elizabeth, what's your view on that same question?
Okay, thank you. Thank you again, John. So I would say that one root cause will be the organizational structuring. If you're in a space where the organization doesn't have a certain or a defined structure, you're going to struggle to know who are the major stakeholders, who have the highest impact, of the highest influence. And many times we tend to think it's the CEO, but lots of the times it's not. Sometimes the CEO has the business vision, but not the technical vision. And you might have to, I've been in that case where I've had to struggle between satisfying the CEO and satisfying the CTO, because he's like, the CEO is like, oh, I want the website out in 1 week. And the CTO is like, okay, it doesn't work like that. We have to follow through steps. We have to go through sprints. We have to do this. So when you don't have a defined organizational structure, you tend to struggle with ambiguity. You tend to struggle with managing your stakeholders correctly. Thank you, John.
And that complements very nicely. I mean, what George is saying there around knowing your stakeholders, knowing their perspectives and their differences as well. So excellent, thank you. And Petunia.
Thank you. I think that the root cause around many BAs struggling to grasp different ways of work or different knowledge areas is the inadequate training. Some BAs are struggling with, their soft skills. How is my attitude towards this new thing, this amazing new thing that I'm inventing or I'm part of? How am I applying my technical expertise? So if you, I think that if you're a BA and your soft skills are not in check, and they are not matching to the technical knowledge, you will struggle to find yourself in a new environment. You will struggle because there will be a resistance from your team members where they might sway you in the wrong direction, just deliberately to say transfer you. So if your skills or soft skills set is quite great, you'll be able to navigate. And that's, for me, one of the root cause that I found out, that your approach towards the problem solving is not aligned to what we are actually solving for.
And that makes me think, Petunia, as well, that quite rightly, that some of the challenges, at the root cause are challenges that are that the BA needs to address, and other causes, as I think of, more organisational as well, as
Yeah.
Elizabeth mentioned as well. And sometimes it's just about the project and the team. So what I naturally think about in this example anyway is sometimes at the root cause of some of the BA problems is the actual initiative maybe isn't well defined, the business case hasn't been considered appropriately, the scope has not been agreed, you know, and in some cases there's not even, you know, been the appropriate consideration about the business situation before we dive straight in to look at the technical solution that we're working on as well. And hopefully that complemented the three excellent answers that you all gave as well. But yeah, so I mean, and again, this is not, you know, we've not covered every single challenge or every single root cause, but it's, I think hopefully from this little bit of part of the conversation, it's evident that you know, things aren't always as they appear on the surface. You only have to go a few levels beneath, and you can see what's probably causing some of those challenges. You know, going back to the point I think you made earlier around ambiguity, I think as BAs we just need to have to get used to ambiguity, but perhaps be comfortable with it as well. So with a bit of a good view of some of the challenges and some of the root cause in mind, I wonder, Elizabeth, could you share your view on how BAs might overcome some of the challenges that we've spoken about already?
Okay, thank you, John. First, I think you want to go in with asking the right questions, just so you know how those things happen here, especially if you're the new BA on the case. You want on the project rather, you want to know how are things done, you want to know what their current processes are like, then you want to know who do I speak to about what. So that way you have like a stakeholder engagement list, and then it helps you prioritize better. It helps you know who to speak with first and then who to speak with next. And then you want to build trust amongst your stakeholders, invest time, just one-on-one relationships beyond the project, so that you better understand how each person functions. Then it helps you know how to bring them in. Now, when you have one-on-one relationship, I have a one-on-one with John, I have a one-on-one with Petunia. I tend to understand that John likes he likes to be communicated via formal means, maybe emails, don't call him. Or Petunia likes to be more personal, maybe have coffee and talk over what you want. So it helps me know better how to interact with all of my stakeholders. And then we can overcome the hurdles of communication, the hurdles of ambiguity, the hurdles of lack of structure. And then together we can put a process through which we can handle certain issues, and we can work on the project. Thank you, John.
Yeah, and I like that point, Elizabeth, around like the collaboration you would have to have as a BA to overcome some of your challenges, you know, with your stakeholders, with your team, those around you as well. Petunia, what would be your perspective on how to overcome some of the challenges we've discussed?
I think, piggybacking on what Lady Bhie said, is you need to have a skill around how you bring people together, facilitate workshops, use stakeholder maps, create understanding objectives, like have a solid ground with the people you work with. It's very important. Have ways around how you work. Very important to overcome challenges is how you adapt to the challenges. Are you flexible enough? Are you ready? Are you teachable? Are you also willing to teach others? Because some of the problems are how we relate to each other, right? It can be that, you know, we're not relating on the same level, like have coffee, but also understand the people you're working with. Take a level, go a bit deeper in understanding the people you work with. It can go a long way. Yeah.
I agree. And that touches quite nicely with what you said earlier, Petunia, about domain knowledge as well. I think, you know, a way that you can overcome some of that domain knowledge that you're lacking, perhaps, spend more time with the experts and your new stakeholders and learn from them. You know, so it's a really good way that you tied those two together. And George, what would be your view as well on how BAs can overcome such challenges?
First of all, great points from Petunia and Elizabeth. I totally agree. Trying to understand the special characteristic, etc., is critical. Another thing I found helpful is trying to exploit the internal knowledge in your organization. So if you work somewhere where you know the customer from previous project, etc., this is a competitive advantage. You can ask in practical terms, colleagues, etc., in your teams for ideas for how to approach the stakeholder. What are the special characteristics? Also, you can ask, is someone here that can help me that knows? Can you introduce me someone, sorry, for which knows and has? Also, from BA communities, forums, etc., you can get some ideas that may be helpful and valuable. So this is from me.
Yeah, excellent point, George. And it's a nice segue into a question we're having a little while on communities and other forums. But it's also a really good reminder of the fact that BAs, we work in organisations, work with bigger teams. We're very rarely the expert on the situation and the organisation, alone. So actually, what better opportunity for a BA to go and speak to those that you pointed out and learn a little bit about the situation as well. And I think that somewhat relates to the point I would make as well, is that some of the challenges that maybe some of our stakeholders have or may cause, or even some of our team, perhaps some of it could be resolved by being a bit more forthcoming with help, i.e. us sharing some of our knowledge with the teams and the stakeholders we work with, perhaps showing them a little bit more about how we've approached the situation. So maybe they might either appreciate it or learn from it if it's appropriate. And just being more transparent with our analysis. I think something I tend to want to do as much as possible is make my analysis as transparent as I can as early as possible. Because then what that means is my stakeholders have the ability to correct course for me if I'm misaligned with what they want, or sometimes to contribute additional points or requirements or perspectives that are necessary as well. So being transparent is always helpful. And I think otherwise, I think going back to a point I think we've touched on as well, in terms of sometimes the challenges we have relate to the flaws in the scope or the lack of scope or business cases perhaps on projects we're on. So certainly as BAs, I feel like we're probably the best placed people to start to pick that up, and it might mean we stop our analysis for a little while and help our clients or stakeholders really understand what the scope of the initiative should be and get that clearly defined before we go on as well. That feels like that might be a helpful way for us to move forward for the projects or initiatives we work on to move forward as well. And we've covered how to overcome the challenges. And I wonder, Petunia, are there any approaches or tools or techniques that you might recommend for BAs as they look to overcome some of their challenges, perhaps?
Yeah, I do have a few tools and ways of work. The first one is the agile methodology. I think that being agile, being adaptable, using the agile methodology in its entirety. Yes, the environment is agile. Is the BA also agile, right? Are you agile in your thinking? Are you robust? Are you applying latest trends? And some of the tools that you can use to make sure that you don't struggle with what you've learned or what you've learned from a different client to the client you're working on is being able to prototype. I think that if you prototype everything that you speak about or the solution that you're working on, you're going to be understood, and therefore the team is also going to be adaptable and explain more concepts to you. So if you're able to prototype and if you're able to model the requirements very well using various BPMN tools, or you introduce new document tools like your Jira, your Confluence, and all of the sorts, you're going to be those are the mechanisms that you can use. And AI, I don't want to go into it, but I feel that if you are an agile BA, you need to be an AI-driven BA as well. Yeah.
Yeah, and I know you made many really good points there, Petunia. I won't talk about all of them, but I will. I just have to recognize the point around agile. I think that's a brilliant point. Really, because I think if you're a BA, whether you're on a truly agile project or a waterfall project or even somewhere in between, I think just having that agile mindset is going to mean you're a little bit more versatile. You're going to deal with ambiguity a little bit better. and you're just going to naturally, I think, be able to attack some of those challenges that we've spoken about or that might crop up. So, not to put any pressure on George, but that's such a good start. But over to George for his view.
Thank you, John. Look, there are many different tools like stakeholders maps, like say RASI model, etc. You know, you have first of all to adapt them in the context you are, in the specific situation, not just doing in order to do something. Because we have tried also as a team to adapt something specific, let's say a stakeholder map from the beginning, and it was not, it's not efficient, it was not working, it was like another task. So you have to try and find what works for the specific team, for the specific situation. Try and error. From my experience now in the current project I think that having somewhere organized meeting minutes, the communications in email, etc., it's very helpful and can give you insights about stakeholders because we don't remember everything. New members are coming to the team. And so there is a good practice to have organized those communications, meetings, minutes, and some notes you had in an organized way in order everyone to have an understanding and to try to find insights for the stakeholders and what was said.
Yeah, that's an excellent dimension there, George, because I think it's easy sometimes, as the question was put, really, in terms of to think about just the tools and the techniques, whether it's process flows or otherwise. But I think it's also about some of those BA skills that we also have. And I think having that organization and that good structure that you were referring to will just enable the BA to consider the situation for what it is, and present information that they have in a way that is appropriate for the stakeholders and project that they're working on as well. So well done. You've added to another excellent example that Petunia had as well, which puts a little bit of pressure on Elizabeth to match with the excellent examples you have, which I'm sure she will.
Okay, thank you, John, for not putting pressure. I was going to say what Petunia said. I mean, working with Agile, of course, we're looking over collaboration, but given that we have mentioned a problem around lack of structure, a problem around stakeholder management, communication, I think having built a relationship, you want to prioritize. And in as much as, like Petunia said, we work with an agile methodology, some people might not be working with agile methodologies, but then again, you want to know what comes first. Given that you have done your empathy map, your stakeholder map, you still want to know, okay, given that this is our direction, how can we channel, which ones can we channel our resources to first in terms of manpower, in terms of money, in terms of materials, and then you do the backlog grooming and you prioritize adequately. So that's where everybody's focused and you document, okay? You want to put this in a view where everybody can go to. Like I always say, if it cannot be used in a court of law, it's not valid. So put it down in black and white so everybody can always reference it to say, this is where we're going. This is how we have said we have agreed to go there. So let's work with the direction. It's going to help manage stakeholder conflict and scope creep that might come in alongside as the project goes up. Thank you, John.
I think so. Yeah, another brilliant point there. Yeah, it's prioritization. We can't work on everything all at once, can we, as BAs? So you have to prioritize, what we work on, prioritizing perhaps sometimes one stakeholder, their opinion over another with good reason. And I'm sure there's more to it as well. So thank you. I think really in terms of approaches that I might add, I mean, I'm always a big advocate of business process, having a clear view of what is happening today and where we're aiming towards as well. And I think sometimes having that foundation of knowing the process can determine or help us at least overcome some of the challenges, because maybe if it's prioritization, for argument's sake, knowing the process means that we can determine maybe why one stakeholder's opinion might be more appropriate to listen to than others. So an example of that perhaps would be a stakeholder that is actively engaged in activities and tasks related to the process. Their perspective on the problems is probably more accurate than somebody who is not part of that team. They're just observing because they provide inputs into that team, as an example. So good. I mean, so excellent examples. Thank you very much. And I know, I think it was George. I think you started mentioning as well, like the community a little while ago. And I wonder, I mean, are there any outside the organisation, perhaps individuals working, are there any communities or perhaps other sources of help and assistance that BAs could go to help them with their challenges?
Yes, there are many organizations. Everybody knows the IIBA, the PMI, the IREB, etc., where you can find useful information. Also, I would like to notice that the guides and the material, when you read for certification, it's the first read, let's say, and you read to pass a certification. I have found very helpful to read again something and to try to read with another perspective. The same guide, not for exam now, but for knowledge and for tips that helps you. The BABOK, the PMI PBA also guide are very helpful, I think, in order to find insights that will help you. Also, local chapters, if they exist from this organization where people meet, etc. I would like to have one in Greece. We have not yet from IIBA. I think gathering with same people and sharing your thoughts, etc., is the most helpful.
Yeah, I would agree. I mean, I think one of you mentioned AI a little while ago, and I know within the IIBA site, they've got a resource for members where they can ask questions, and a Gen AI engine will give them some answers as well, based on the body of knowledge that you mentioned as well, George. So yeah, excellent. Thank you. Elizabeth, your view on that same question.
Okay, Josh has mentioned about the IIBA, but I believe there are other communities that might not be as global as the IIBA. For instance, I belong to the WIBA community, Women in Business Analysis, and it's a community that helps women, who are business analysts, come together. You have a question, you drop it on the group, everybody is rallying around you to answer your question. You're new on the BA job, you are new on the project. Everybody is coming to ensure that they give you support because, of course, you can't do it alone. Something that's new to you might be someone else's expertise, and you can have those professional communities, you can have online forums, you can have training and certification centers. For instance, I have a BA community that's called BAMS community. What we do there is we give support to entry-level business analysts, because many times people don't understand. When you read the internet, when you're on the web, there's a lot of information about who a BA is, who a BA is not. So it causes some sort of confusions. But those communities can help you channel your focus. Okay, you know what? A BA is everything that everybody says a BA is, and everybody is a BA, but there's a place to get started. And as you advance, you can now expand. So having belonging to those communities, and not just on LinkedIn, bringing them home to like your WhatsApp, which is like a really personal space where you know that, okay, people are going to check their WhatsApp. So if I do drop a message on WhatsApp, I'm going to get responses. So besides the global body like IIBA in your local chapters, you also want to belong to other similar and seemingly small bodies of business analysts. Those really help. They've helped me. So I encourage people to belong to them.
Excellent. And Elizabeth, there's some support they can get through your Lady Bhie site as well. Is that right?
Yes.
So would you like to just share a little bit around what that is and how people can go there and get a little bit of extra help as well?
In my community?
Yeah.
Oh, it's really simple. So what I do is I do like weekly sessions where we go out over the social media and talk to everybody about what we do and encourage people, put out wisdom. We try to educate and inform. And then when you come into the community, we now talk. I usually have like a one-on-one with people who are open and understand, why are you here? Why are you transitioning to being a business analyst? Because many people think, oh, it's tech and it's the simpler part of tech. And many people don't understand, coming from several other backgrounds, sales, customer service, finance, they don't understand how they can channel their skill set into being a business analyst. So for me, it's really simple. So I have this, I'm working on the website, but for now we use a bit.ly link, which is bit.ly/BA in capital letters, IN 1 hour. So that's saying that our weekly sessions are 1 hour. So by the time you attend 1 or 2 or 3 of our sessions, you have a better understanding of who a BA is and who a BA is not, and how you can get started. So bit.ly/BA in 1 hour. That helps.
I will ask you to share the link if you would.
Okay, yeah, I'll put that in the comments.
As well.
Thank you.
Thank you very much, Elizabeth. All right, brilliant. And Petunia, that same question to you in terms of the communities and sources of help that we can go to.
I think it has been covered in entirety. The IIBA, I'm very passionate about that, and I'm part of the leading structures of the local chapter in my country. One that I don't think was mentioned, but I think it was, but I want to expand on it, is mentorship, right? I think that it's okay to say that you don't know. It's okay to surround yourself with people who know much on the subject. And there is no need to go dig a well. Well, when there's person or there's resources or people that are an oasis full of knowledge you can draw from. So identify key people in your career path whom can guide and walk the journey of business analysis with you. I think that for me, I personally have been part of programs where I'm mentored and I'm directed in the way that I should handle, myself as a business analyst, how I handle information is quite essential. So that's that. That's as strong as that.
Yeah, excellent point. What these videos have taught me are many things, but one of them is that there's so many people in the community that have so much to share in terms of knowledge and experience and guidance. They're great people to go and reach out to for a little bit of mentorship if possible. Some of them formally have mentorship programs, of course, but also from my day to day actually at Capco, I realised that there's people there that are great for mentoring for non-BA specific tasks that are very related. So sometimes I might see somebody who is really good at public speaking and facilitation, which is somewhat part of a BA role, but maybe it isn't their specific role. And by observing them, finding their tips, how they might present themselves or prepare for their sessions, is definitely good. It's just definitely helped me. As one example, I know there's many I could share. All right, brilliant. And I think, for me, on top of what you've all said, I think resources that people go to for extra help, there is, there's different, as well as the IIBA and other bodies like BCS, local bodies that people go to. There are local and global and online conferences that people can attend to hear a little bit more about business analysis, perhaps some of the situations they find themselves in. I think you mentioned books as well, which is definitely a good advocate of books, and there's many out there that are really helpful. And to George's point, going back and reading those books a few times is definitely good advice as well, I would say. And of course, YouTube is a good resource for not only hopefully sessions like this, but I know there's other sessions similar that people can learn from BAs who are actually doing the role. But even sometimes we can overcome our very specific or technical challenges by looking at a video perhaps that might help us with BPMN or UML or whatever the situation might be. There's normally a video for it as well. So many different ways people can overcome the challenges. They should be confident to know. And just going in a little bit more detail on perhaps one of them now. Elizabeth, if I can, Is there any challenges that you've faced previously, or one particular challenge perhaps, that you would say that having gone past that challenge, that you found it to have a most beneficial outcome for you, or perhaps your team or organisation?
There's many I can point to, but I'm going to talk about one that happened very recently. So an organization I'm with, it's a startup, but they seem to have gone through some like funding round, so they have good prospects. They're working on their website. Before I came on the project, a website has been done that did not meet specification of the business stakeholders. So I come on board, and this is the first thing I'm asked to do because, of course, the website is the face of the company, right? And we need copies for this website. So a copywriter is brought on board, give me copies for this website, and I'm done with my BRD. I just need the copies to put out so that when I send them forth to the product team, they understand what to do. A copywriter, this takes like 6 weeks, almost 2 months to give me copies for a website. So it now began to feel like, and everybody seems to be working in silos because the copywriter is talking to me, he's talking to business stakeholder, talking to another business stakeholder. So everybody's giving individual information. We're not coming together. There's no collaboration. So when I decide to address this, so I go to the CTO and I say, okay, there seems to be a communication lag. Everybody's working separately and we don't know what we're doing here. So let's come back home. So we had to get a call, the CTO had to address. And it turns out that the copywriter thought it was her duty to create the website, like how the structures should look like and all of that. And I'm like, okay, so how did we get here? So there seems to have been some silo conversations with other business stakeholders that possibly gave her the idea that she's the one to handle the building of the website. And she goes, oh, I've done it before. It came out in a week, yada, yada, yada. Okay. So the fact that something worked before does not mean that's the right way to do things. So if you don't start now to put processes in place, we're just going to end up working like a jungle. So that's what I took from there was communication gaps. So rather than speak to someone, hey, I've got this, you need to do this, I need you on this, let us all get on a call. Let everybody's role be defined. This is what you're doing. This is what we expect from you. This is the goal. And that helped put a lot of things in perspective. And in about a week, we were able to turn out the BRD. And I was able to speak to the dev team because it's not an in-house dev team. So I was able to speak to the dev team, get a roadmap, and our website is in the works. So one thing I took from there is communication. I mean, when you have reported speech, you can get a lot of they said, she said, he said, and it's not reported right. So there's a lot of misunderstandings there. So communication is one very key and essential part of being a business analyst, and you need to know how to manage everybody together.
Yeah, and that's a really good example because communication is like the key skill that we have as BAs, and actually every opportunity, whether it's a project that goes well or maybe not so well, it's just an opportunity to evaluate whether your communication or the project or the team's communication could be improved a little bit next time to improve the situation. So yeah, really good start. Thank you, Elizabeth. Petunia.
I also just draw from a recent challenge where there were conflicting priorities in terms of whose project we're going to do first. And and I think that challenge came from the organization politics, the dynamics that are involved in there. And one of the things that I did to solve that problem was I organized the workshop. Obviously, that workshop has saved the company time, money, resources because um, misalignment can be a huge problem. So be agile, be flexible enough to put people in a room, let them decide because um, they in turn will thank you when you save the money. Yes, I'm gonna leave it. Yeah.
Thank you very much. And George?
Yes, I think the real challenge is to accept the challenges and to accept as integral part of the role, the ambiguity, etc., the conflict. from my perspective, the most challenging part is dealing with people uh, before go live, let's say, of a system, of a new system where there is a great pressure there, and how to deal with people. I had stakeholders talking to me at night, crying, anxious for the next day, etc. And I also were anxious and trying to do my best, of course, etc. With the experience, however, you try to manage those things. If you have seen one, two, three times, you are more familiar and you accept that this is part of the job. You have to manage this. So yes, people management, I would say, this challenge, it's very challenging and can give you many lessons.
I agree. Yeah, I mean, I think like all of the points made as well, George. I mean, from every challenge, you can, there's much positive to take from it. Whilst it might be difficult at the time, just being able to overcome it and look back on it can not only fulfill you with a sense of achievement, but also there's lessons to be had to how to improve next time around. And that's the same for me as well. I mean, like, I remember one situation very early on in my BA career where I had a very difficult stakeholder actually, and you know, unusually, having been doing business analysis or involved in it for over 20 years, he probably still stands out as my most difficult stakeholder. And what I've come to appreciate is having a really difficult stakeholder so early on in my BA career means that every other stakeholder that I come across now that is even remotely difficult, I compare them back to him, and they're never quite as difficult when I do that, and that makes me feel a bit more comfortable. And of course, some of the techniques I might have used in the past to manage the difficulty of that stakeholder, such as being transparent and drowning them with kindness, was one of the pieces of advice that was given to me. Then that's helped me in good stead, and that's worked since then. And there's definitely stakeholders that I've worked with who appear to be difficult sometimes on the project or at a certain point in time, that have gone on. We've gone on to have very good relationships with, outside of work. So that's always possible, no matter how difficult things seem to be at any time. Good. And so, I mean, with a few more minutes left, I'm almost going to take us back to a point that Petunia made right at the very start. She mentioned domain knowledge being one of the areas of challenge. And I just want to ask the question. I'll start with Petunia. She brought it up initially as to, does your domain knowledge, or indeed perhaps your industry knowledge or your organization, can that influence some of the challenges, do you think, that a BA might have?
100%. That can influence it fully, because the industry and the domain, some of them are regulated. Some of them have compliance patterns that you might struggle to adapt to. There's strict requirements around that. And junior BAs, they will struggle. Mid-level, it's also around the adaptability. While seniors may struggle with, how do I influence my ways of thinking, or how do I influence, on this domain? How can I change it? How can we regulate it better? So those are some of the things that I think that if in contrast, they demand a bit of flexibility, Yeah.
Yeah, thank you very much, George.
All these things, every context is different, and there are situational characteristics you have to take into account. Of course, the industry, the experience level, all of this play their role. However, I have found that some techniques, the concept, the philosophy, let's say, of BA and business analysis have some fundamental things same, despite the industry, despite the content, etc. It's a way of thinking, It's how you approach things in a more structured way that can be beneficially regardless the industry, the organization, etc. But of course, you have to take into account the context, the special characteristics.
Yeah, great. Yeah, no, I think unfortunately I can't remember who mentioned it. It might be many of you, but yeah, being able to leverage and work with colleagues elsewhere in the organisation as well, that can be extremely helpful in those situations where maybe you're not familiar specifically with every aspect of the domain, or you don't have the full knowledge of that you believe you should have. Um, and in fact, I think something that I've sort of come to appreciate is that as a BA, you're not going to know everything. It's not your job isn't to know everything in advance, and you just need to be comfortable with that. But what you also need to be comfortable with is that you will need to go and approach these people that are experts, and they can help you as well. So yeah, thank you for prompting me to think about that, George. And finally, Elizabeth.
Okay, so I would say that, like you have just mentioned, you don't have to know everything. So leverage relationships. You are new in a law firm, you're a BA on a law firm, you're a BA in renewable energy, you're a BA in climate change industry. You don't have to go and consume all of the materials on the internet about how these things work. So you can look for other lawyers, for instance, look for other climate change advocates, follow them, hear what they talk about, ask questions, go to their events and throw questions. So it's when you hear people relate it in a way that you can absorb, it makes it easier to bring home the point. So when I got into renewable energy, I struggled for the first 6 to 9 months to understand how this thing works. And you would think that it would be very simple. I mean, it's renewable energy, right? But I had to understand a lot of technical terms. I was talking with engineers. I was talking with OEMs. I was talking with supply chain. So a lot of jargon kept flying all about. And I was going to thank God for ChatGPT and other AI. So you could really just type in your question and have a conversation. But you also want to read, you want to read wide, you want to leverage relationships, you want to talk to people, you want to tell them to teach you like a 5-year-old so that you can also teach another person like a 5-year-old. So when you can do that, then you know that, okay, I do have good understanding. And all you really need is basic understanding. And the rest will come as you apply your basic understanding across the domain and the industry. Thank you, John.
I think so. Yeah, you make some excellent points there, Elizabeth, too. I think trying to communicate as a child might communicate means that you're focusing on the straightforward, the basic concepts rather than go straight into the technique or the technical jargon anyway. Yeah, brilliant. I mean, I can't really add much more to that, to be honest. I think there are, as you've all said, there's definitely challenges that are specific to the domain or to the situation as well. I think, as George pointed out, that there are also challenges that are quite generic, and there'll be different flavors of them, irrespective of the industry you're in at all. But hopefully, from those that are listening to this or watching this, or perhaps take some of our advice and go and read some books or look up the IIBA, to name but a few. Maybe they'll learn some of those other techniques as well, and approaches. But all that's left really is to thank the three of you for your time and the excellent insights. Really enjoy the conversations, I always do. So thank you very much, everybody.
Thank you.